Good evening, everybody. I've got 6:30. I'd like to welcome you to Town of Waukesha Plan Commission meeting, May 14, 2015, beginning at 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Chairman Merrick,
Present.
Supervisor Fisher,
Here.
Dan Bucos, Robert Flanagan,
Here.
Al White,
Here.
Robert Stigler,
Here.
Ken Miller.
And Madam Clerk, have we met all of the open meetings laws requirements?
Yes, we have.
And we can begin with citizens' comments. Going once, going twice. Good evening.
Good evening, Wayne Borchard, Big Bend Road. I've got several things here. I noticed twice now the notice for this meeting tonight had the wrong address for the property in question. It was listed as the proper address at 789 North Water Street, Milwaukee. Don't we list the property address in the town of Waukesha?
No, the address is actually for the petitioner's address, not the property address that they're petitioning.
So we have one
for.
petitioner.
Yes.
On the last meeting, you jumped in with some things too. What's going to happen tonight?
No, same, exactly the same petitioner, same amendments. It was tabled to this meeting.
Okay, so we're going to have two different petitioners or one?
No, it's always been one.
Okay. Are we questioning the density? What is the density now on units per acre?
We don't have any multifamily zoning currently.
Okay. And the other thing is, there was figures tossed around up to 15 units per acre. That is highly excessive. Most places it's 8 per acre. And I believe being a rural community like we are the town, we need to keep it down to the 8. We don't need development with a lot of density out here. You know, they're gonna demand water. They're going to demand everything else that the city has, and we don't need that. We want to be a town living with the conditions we have now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? And we can move on to the approval of the minutes from April 9th. First one is for the public hearing and the second for the Plan Commission. Is that anybody object to taking them both at the same time? Is there a motion? And a second? Microphones?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to 6, discussion and possible action on site plan of operation for J&N Properties. Applicant is Michael Bell and Complete Towing. Location is West 241 South 3975 Rockwood Circle. Tax key is WAKT 1381-999008. And I think that's probably Mr. Bell in the back. And I'll turn it over to Planner Ibarczyk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The petitioner is looking to reconstruct the Complete Towing business, which was recently destroyed in a fire. He provides the towing and recovery and impound services for the area on a very limited basis. He does minor automotive repair on vehicles that were not claimed during a specific period of time when he tows them back to his facility and could potentially resell them. He's looking to reconstruct the new building in the same location as the former building is. He employs 4 full-time employees or part-time equivalent. His site plan shows a total of 9 parking stalls per our requirements in our zoning district or zoning code, he is required to have a minimum of 5 stalls, so he does meet that. His proposed hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., with the towing and recovery services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He has one small size tow truck, one medium duty tow truck, and 5 flatbeds that he has as part of his business. He does have an impound yard, which is using the existing fenced areas to the northwest part of the site. And then he proposes I have a 30-inch by 48-inch wall-mounted identification sign on the south elevation of the building. When I reviewed the architectural plans and site plan that he provided us against our current policies, the one thing that I did notice is that the south elevation, which faces the cul-de-sac, originally that was his main entrance in the new building. He's switching the entrance to the west elevation where his garage bays are at. But per our ordinance, that south elevation that faces the cul-de-sac has to have 50% of a brick or decorative masonry or a glass panel or other finished facade that is approved by the Town Plan Commission and the board. Currently, with the band of brick that he has in the base and the 4 windows, it's only 100 square feet, so he's only at 10%. So per our ordinance, unless the Plan Commission and the board felt that the metal panel that he's using on that elevation, is a finished facade, he would have to improve that elevation to reach the 50%. The other thing is that on the east elevation, which is the back side of the building, per our ordinance, it says that the material should wrap around the building 25 feet. He has it on the west elevation because that's his kind of his main elevation or entrance to the building, the back of the building, which is the east. He doesn't have any kind of finished grade material, so per our ordinance, he should probably wrap the brick around that 25 feet. And then the last is the landscaping standards. He has the existing landscaping that's out on the cul-de-sac that meets the requirements for the street edge condition. He's utilizing the existing parking lot, so he doesn't have to have any parking or any landscaping within the existing parking lot. But there is a condition that says landscape standards for the building foundations. And when you do the calculation, he needs 128 landscape points around the building foundation. And on the south side right now, he only has 55 landscape points, so he's 83 short. And again, that's just looking at our site plan ordinance and picking some more trees and some more shrubs to get to the 128 landscape points. Aside from that, in my review of it, he meets all the other conditions of the site plan review ordinance. So if the Town Plan Commission tonight decides to move forward, I did put a recommendation on page 2 and page 3 of the staff report. It's 14 total conditions. The first one being that he would have to show a revised architectural elevation on the south side, and then a revised landscape plan that I would look at before issuing the zoning permit, because again, it's technical requirements that he's meeting. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Mr. Bell, come on up. The rebuilding, in case anybody doesn't know, and I'm sure you all do, is a result of a fire that was at his facility December?
January 8th.
January 8th, okay. Any questions for any of the comments that Planner Rybarczyk had?
I mean, running a 50%, that's whatever, across the front of the building. I'm kind of confused with running it the other side. I mean, it's the only brick building in the cul-de-sac, or the entire industrial park.
Everyone
But
else has metal panel right to the ground.
It is indeed. I drove it
All the
today.
buildings.
Yeah, I
And you're
mean,
absolutely
the 50
accurate.
across the front, I got no problem with that. I mean, that's whatever.
When you
We
say
just put it there.
50% though, what we're thinking, what we're saying, maybe we can amend by running that 3-foot-4 wainscoting, just continuing it on the entire south face. Would that be acceptable? Because right now we have a 3-foot-4 high masonry wainscot. What we did is we brought it up to the windows, but what he's saying is that, hey, can we continue through?
We'll just
I'm
run
not
it
sure if
halfway
it makes
through.
us at 50%.
It doesn't. You would have to run it all the way across the length of the building. And then you would probably have to even
Come up a little.
come up around the windows to get the 50%. That's kind of what I was
What I'm
thinking.
hoping is that we can just keep it at that window elevation.
Right,
One,
the 3 foot
If you bring it up above the windows, now it just causes them.
window issues.
If I can bring that sill flush to the top of the block, again, we're putting more than everyone else has, as it is. And again, when you talk about wrapping also, masonry around the back, it's unviewable area in the back, it's the fenced in.
I completely understand, but these are policy decisions, not my decision,
Right,
because we
right.
have the requirements of the ordinance to follow. So if we don't follow it for you, then we set a precedent for, if we have another circumstance of a building in the,
Understandable with new construction, this is like a reconstruction of an existing facility that's already there.
but it's still,
And
it's
a
still,
hardship or
a-
loss.
but it's still a new building. So it's, I completely understand. But, per our ordinance, it is deemed new construction, a new building. But, so with that, I'll turn it back over to the Plan Commission.
Thank you.
Mr.
Flanagan?
Chairman, I have a question. I can
Mike.
recall,
Bob, microphone.
oh, I'm sorry. I got it on, isn't it on? Ah. Okay, I can recall when the body shop here, right on the railroad tracks, they wanted this same thing, and I'm thinking, who are we showing the brick to? The engineer and the train going by? And just, I'm looking out in the backyard here, how much brick do we have on our own buildings here? I mean, to me, I think that's a punishment to a business, when you and I both know that most of the runs down to the grade line in this neighborhood. I mean, it's an industrial park. So, for what it's worth, I think there's got to be a little room in some of these ordinances sometimes.
Jamie, is there, in our ordinance, is it hard and fast, or is there room for, and I completely understand regarding every other building. I drove the park today. Nobody else has brick. I get
No.
that. Back when those buildings were originally built, there likely was no requirement for any type of brick
Right.
facade.
With the fire too, it's a hardship, so the insurance only covers a certain amount, and we're already exceeding that. As it is, it's.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a suggestion while Jamie's looking at her, just weigh in with a thought here. I understand the requirement of our ordinance. I understand the reality of the existing context of the buildings in the area. I understand this fire-related loss. My suggestion would be, in looking at that, if the petitioner has expressed a willingness to extend that, is a 3-foot-4-inch high masonry wainscot, exterior wainscot, whatever you want to call it, across the front of the building under the windows, that would not fully comply with our ordinance in terms of a strict interpretation, but I read the words in there, appropriate, similar, finished facade as may be approved by the Plan Commission through a recommendation to the town board. I would think that that in this context would be, from my point of view, would be an appropriate, similar finished facade with just running that part of the masonry. I don't think that there's anything to gain on the aesthetics of the building by taking that up above the windowsill level simply to try to get additional square footage. Whether that should or should not return 25 feet down that east exterior elevation, I don't have a strong opinion on that. But with the south elevation, I would suggest strongly that the Plan Commission members consider what the petitioner has expressed a willingness to do, is extend that wainscot across the front of the 3-foot-4-inch high height and be pleased with that. That's my point of view.
I mean, on the flip side is not to interrupt, but we got to put shrubs and trees in front of it. So you're putting concrete up to cover it up with bushes and shrubs, and what sense does that make? I mean, you're covering it up. You can't even see it with all the green growing. Just a,
Same thing with the landscaping too. We have a landscaping we showed on the drawing, but if you've been by their facility before in the past, they keep like a garden-like atmosphere there. His wife is constantly doing stuff in landscaping, so there's always fresh plantings. They really take well care of the lot itself.
I'll jump in one more time if I can. Other people need to weigh in on that. I mean, I think you have proposed a landscaping plan. I understand that's what, 55 points, that does not fully comply with the requirements of our ordinance. But in this instance, I would think that from my perspective, that would be sufficient as proposed.
Anybody else have any comments or questions for Mr. Bell? So Planner Barczyk's recommendation was to approve, subject to staff recommendation with some revised plans. I also concur with Supervisor Fisher that we should have some leniency with regards to the masonry on the building. It would almost look out of place with every other building in the, specifically that's cul-de-sac. That being said, is there a motion?
Well, I make a motion based on the recommendations of Brian and myself and anybody else with some common sense.
I'll second that. I wanted just one comment too. I believe that since this building was an existing building, it confirmed before it was in compliance, and I think that with these little modifications here, I think it'll be fine. So I would second that motion.
Actually say the motion, please.
I'll do it if you want.
Thank you.
Okay. The motion would be to recommend approval to the town board of the staff recommendations with the following exceptions as policy decisions: that the south elevation of the building be required to have the block wainscot at 3'4" high continued across the entirety of the south exterior elevation, that the requirements to make modifications to the east exterior elevation be waived, and that the landscaping plan as proposed by the petitioner, which has 55 landscaping points, if I got that number correct, be accepted, and the requirement for 128 landscaping points be waived, and I so move.
Second,
I'll second.
any further discussion?
I just want to ask you, because Attorney Macy's not here, and if we approve this, if you guys approve this like this, is this going to open you up for others, or do you want to specifically state it's in the industrial park for a property that,
I guess
Property
if you
loss.
want to put this into the motion, as I read the language appropriately with the regards to the masonry, I believe the words are, or other appropriate similar finished facade as may be approved. It's really recommended by the Town Plan Commission. And I would say that our finding should be that the 3'4" high wainscot on the south elevation with the metal panels above it would be deemed in that instance to be an appropriate similar finished facade. And I think that should be our finding.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to 7, discussion and possible action on text zoning. Thank you. Text zoning changes. Petitioner is Fred Lathers LLC. Their address is 789 North Water Street, Suite 200. Subject is 13-2-5 site regulations, subsection 13-3-1, establishment of districts, and 13-2-9, conditional uses for recommendation to the town board. And at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Supervisor Fisher.
Okay, if you recall, and for the benefit of the members of the audience, this matter was before us back at our regularly scheduled meeting on April 9th of this year. I believe the minutes accurately reflect that this agenda item, and that being action on ordinance 2015-02 was tabled at that point in time in order to have a discussion and possible action on that tonight. That needs to be removed from the table by a motion from one of the plan commissioners, seconded, and has to be affirmatively approved. So before we can do anything, it has to come from the table.
I'll make the motion to put this back on the table for consideration tonight.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to put the discussion and possible action on ordinance 201502 back on the table. We'll do this by voice vote. All of those who are in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, so we're back in place, I believe, and Jamie, you can help me or Kathy, but in front of us, we have, again, that ordinance. There are some revisions to that. Am I correct? Basically, those things in red reflect other changes, or maybe are you prepared to walk us through what has been changed since this was presented a month ago?
Yes. So the packet that you have before you, if we turn to the second page, it says 13-2-5 site regulations. The under A1, the red text there, that has not from last month. That stays consistent. When we get down to section 2, which is 13-2-9, the conditional use for multifamily, the question that was raised was the allowable density that we should be looking at for potential multifamily within the town of Waukesha. And again, the reason we're looking at this ordinance is that staff has had discussions about lands that have been brought forward for potential development reasons, but because we can't provide them with the density that they would like to have for those lands, they have been threatening annexation to the city of Waukesha. So we felt that we should at least bring to the Plan Commission and the board a potential ordinance modification that won't necessarily prohibit someone from annexing, but at least gives us some more flexibility to work with property owners before they immediately just choose to go to an incorporated area. So what we did is on the third page, item D2, where we talked about the density for multifamily, originally we just said that the density shall not exceed 15 dwelling units per acre. And I think when Plan Commission members and board members first read that, it was a little bit alarming. Since then, we took the comments that we received. I worked with Attorney Macy, did some research from some of the surrounding communities, and we came up with a revised policy that says the density shall not exceed 15 dwelling units per acre if the parcel is contiguous to an incorporated municipality, and shall not exceed 8 dwelling units per acre if it's not contiguous to an incorporated municipality. And again, I want to preference that the only way you're going to be able to get this density is if you're getting both sewer and water. We came up with the 15 dwelling units per acre. We did look at the city of Waukesha zoning code in their R3, which is their multifamily. It ranges from 12.4 units per acre for a 3-bedroom unit and 21.8 units per acre for a 1-bedroom efficiency. If you take the medium road for a 2-bedroom, it's 14.7. So that's where we had come up with the 15 units. If you look at the 8 units per acre, what we did is we looked at the town of Brookfield. In their multi-unit district, they are allowed up to 7.3 units per acre. So therefore, we had rounded that up to 8. We also looked at town of Lisbon, town of Merton, towns of Delafield and Mukwonago, city of New Berlin, and then also Waukesha County when we came up with those. The last change that we made was with regard to the garages. We distinguished that if you're doing a duplex, you should have a 2-unit attached garage. If you're doing a multifamily building, you should provide at least 1 parking stall that's in an attached garage and 1 parking stall that is in a surface lot. And then the last change that we made to the ordinance as were presented last month is in section 313-3-1. And this talks about when lands are both within the Waukesha County Shoreline Zoning District and within local jurisdiction of the town of Waukesha, how is density, setbacks, building size, et cetera, determined? And what we did is Attorney Macy and his colleagues had come up with more concise, clearer language as to how each of them are addressed. So the intent of the ordinance hasn't changed. It's just that the language is much clearer than what we originally presented last month. So with that, Supervisor Fisher, I will turn it back over to you and the Plan Commission to see if there's any questions.
Wait, just one thing for clarity, and then we'll have people weigh in. Just a reminder, this was the matter of a public hearing a month ago. Again, Planner Grabarczyk, correct me if I'm mistaken, but this ordinance 2015-2 actually has 3 components to it. It's text changes in 3 parts of the zoning ordinance, if I'm not mistaken. And what we're looking at tonight, the first and the third parts, is it correct that those remain unchanged from what we looked at a month ago? Is that correct? And
that is correct, except for the third part is just the language has been cleaned up. It's more clear.
Okay, and in the second part, there are some changes of substance. And if I'm not mistaken, when this was discussed at length a month ago, both at the Plan Commission and Town Board level, Attorney Macy's counsel to us is that it was appropriate and fitting to make some changes to this if they were, I have to look for the, I guess, the right words to choose, but with regard to the density and so forth, more restrictive, or would back away from what was presented at the public hearing, that would be an appropriate thing to do. To go the other direction would not be appropriate. So with that said, any questions, comments? I know many of the members of the Plan Commission weighed in on this a month ago. Is this get us where you'd like to go?
I appreciate what he did with this. I think he took our comments and rewrote this and came up with some restrictions that made this livable. We still maintain just the 8 units per acre in our typical town setting. We're maintaining the city sewer water hookup or municipal city sewer water hookup for anything that would be any more dense than that. And we've limited it to 15 as the most dense. I too did some research, and I went to the village of Wales and to the town of Merton and the town of Summit, where they do allow some multifamily development. And out in Wales, they're doing a big development right now, right by the high school, that is pretty close to 21 units per acre. It's just massive. And they have similar circumstances that we have. They have no city sewer water. There would be no way I would ever approve that kind of density. But then when you go to areas up in Summit and stuff where they do have some 12 and 15 unit per acre developments, they look very manageable, and with city sewer water and hookup, I could support that.
Thank you. Other comments?
I think they did a great job also in revising this. I think they did an excellent job, and I congratulate them for doing what they did and make this come through. And I know it was a ton of work to get this to where it is, and I think it's going to work out good in the town, so it doesn't look like we built something that we shouldn't have in the town. I think it's going to fit in really nice and button the city limits and stuff, and I think it's great. So I 100% approve this.
Anyone else? I'll make one comment just while you're thinking, if you want to weigh in or have any questions. I will support the way this has been rewritten, and thank you for the effort in doing that. I support the allowable density of 15 dwelling units per acre for properties that are contiguous to an incorporated municipality. The whole purpose and intent of that, from my perspective, is if that's something that we can do to try to preserve our town borders, our town land resources, to do what we can to encourage and allow developers to develop and remain in the town and do it in a responsible manner. I think that's a very good direction to head in, so I am all in support of that. Any other comments before we take a vote on this? If you're comfortable with proceeding with all three of these at a time, a motion would be in order to recommend approval of ordinance number 2015-02 to the town board. Now, somebody's got to make that motion. I didn't do it. I just said that'd be a good thing to do. You want to make, Mr. Flanagan made the motion, is that correct? Does somebody like to second? Mr. Miller seconded. All right, Mr. Miller seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that concludes that item. Thank you.
Motion for adjournment? And a second for Mr. Flanagan? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
7:02.
We'll take a short break.